Well, again, yeah, it's good to see everybody here today. I was thinking when I was little, when I was 7, 8, 9, 10, I don't know, I had all kinds of expectations. And I was thinking of this because a lot of it always goes back to really sports. And so that's when I was thinking, I was like, I'm just going to be rich. I mean, have you thought about that? Look, when you were a kid, that's just what it was. It was like, when I grew up, what are you going to do? Well, obviously, I'm just going to be rich. You know, it's like, that was a natural. Like, I'm going to do that. So then I guess I had to narrow it down. Like, okay, you got to do something to be rich. And so it was like, I'm just going to play sports. And that's all it was. I was just going to play sports. And I love baseball, but I was like, you know what? There's all kinds of sports out there. Whichever one pays the most, you know, obviously I'm going to do that. Or I'll do multiple sports, you know, and just I'll play them. I like them all, so why don't I just be pro in all these? Now, one of my favorite players now, like he's going to be going in the draft, you know, this year. He just won the Heisman this last year for my team. Just before that, though, he was drafted in the first round in baseball, the 9th pick overall to the Oakland A's, and he was like, okay, my stipulation is I get to play 1 year of college football, and they're like, okay, just don't get hurt, you know, and so he's like, he's going to play it out. But he did awesome. You know, he just dominated, and he won the Heisman. So now he's like, let me rethink this. He's like, he told him, he gave back his $6 million signing bonus, which I remember those all the time when I was younger. But no, he gave that back and was like, I'm going to try out football. So they're projecting him to be in the first round, you know, in football now, which would be the first player to be in baseball and football first round, you know, like Bo Jackson, like better than that, you know, in any way. We'll see how that goes. But anyway, just thinking about that, and I was like, that was what I wanted to do as a kid. That was my dreams. I'm just going to be rich, and I'm just going to dominate in all these sports. And then I grow up, you know, and it's like, didn't really, in case you're wondering, like it didn't play out that way. Like this wasn't like my second plan. Like I was in the pros, and then I came to preach. Like it didn't work that way. Your plans kind of changed. I think we all have expectations in our life. Maybe you have expectations when you graduate high school, maybe college, maybe just moving out, or maybe just in life, like first jobs. We have all these expectations in life, and it doesn't always go the way we think. We always have this plan of, oh, this is what I want to do, and it doesn't always hit that way. When you maybe have relationships or when you have kids, you know, and all these different things, there's these different plans. I was even thinking this with my daughter whenever she was born. I only have one daughter. She's 12 now. But when she was born, I remember I was a dad I had this down. I was a dad for like 30 minutes. And so I remember calling up my sister in the hospital, and as my, you know, baby's sleeping in the bed in there, we were there for like a week in the hospital because they had infection and stuff. But we were there 30 minutes into it. I remember calling my sister and saying, yeah, she's doing healthy, and she's going to be good. I don't think she's going to be a crier. I mean, she's doing really good right now, you know, like based on 30 minutes of being a dad. Yeah, I was like, and that's kind of how she was. She's like, oh, okay. Well, that's good, you know. We'll see how that goes. But no, she cried a lot. You know, I think she still does and stuff. No, she's in the back. No, but no, it's just you have these expectations, and everything just really, it kind of changes. I thought about this. We have expectations even coming into church. Even coming in here, you have expectations of how it should be, how I need to be, how the music needs to be. There's all these different things. There have been people that have come into the church, and there's been people that have left. It'll probably be the same way. People come in and check out places, and it's always that way. And there's going to be things they're looking at. Like I said, it may be me. It may be they're just not a humorous person, and I'm like, this is just who I am. You know, it just flows out of me as there's no laughter. No, just all this. Thank you. Yeah, making my point. Yeah, pity laugh. I'll pay you later. No, it's like sometimes they're coming in and there's just different things. It could be me, it could be different people in here. You never know, right or wrong. We have these expectations of this. Now, I thought about this when I was a brand new Christian. I almost felt bad to have any type of expectations with God. Now I think it's okay. I think it's in a way it's good to not have some expectations there. But I didn't have any. I was kind of afraid to have any kind of expectations in my relationship with Christ. And I want to talk about that today because I was thinking about this here. I want to read here out of James chapter 1. And if you've been in our church any amount of time, not as if we've been around for a long time, but I love this book. And I will, unapologetically, I'm going to go back to this book a whole lot. It's probably probably my favorite book, one of my favorite books, because I just love it. It's practical, and he speaks about just where I feel like I am in my life and what I just want to follow God. I just want to stop talking about this stuff, and I want to go do it. I want to see what he's saying in here, even though it's hard, and wrestle with this stuff and go do it. And I think James is really talking about that. He's like, just put your faith in action. Stop talking about this. Let's do it. So that's one of the reasons I go to this. But let me read this here in James chapter 1, verses 2 through 8, because I want to talk about this idea of these expectations. James 1, 2 through 8, he says, "Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything." And then he goes on and says, "If any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to you. But when you ask, you must believe and not doubt, because the one who doubts is like a wave of the sea blown and tossed by the wind. That person should not expect to receive anything from the Lord. Such a person is double-minded and unstable in all they do." So really, my question is, to put that up here on the screen, my question here is, do you expect anything in your relationship with Jesus? Now I said, I know that's maybe kind of a loaded question, or you're just wondering like where I'm going with that in any way, but do you expect anything in your relationship with Jesus? Or are you like how I was in the beginning? I was kind of afraid to have any kind of expectations in there with God. And let me say here from the beginning what I'm not saying. I think this will help us to understand where we're going and where James is in here. God is not obligated to do anything for us. I want to make that clear. I'm not saying like you come to know him and all of a sudden he's your genie. He does whatever you want. Just whatever, your wish is my command. I'll do that for you. I think it's important for us to understand that from the beginning here. God is not obligated to do anything for us. And that's a humbling thought, but I think it puts us in the right place of mind here. You probably know someone who is just that like stereotypical like perfect picture of a person who's entitled. You just think like they just think they have to do everything because of who they are. Like, this is me. I've done this. This is my life. Here's my resume. Don't you know who my dad is? Don't you know like who my family is? Don't you know what we've done, what I've accomplished, where I work, who I am, what I look like, all these different things. And there's just some people that, just think about just entitled in that way. Like they should just have this. And we always joke, it's like it's the millennials or whatever in that way. And there's people in every age group that are entitled. I mean, it's not just different age groups. There's just people that just feel like, you should just do this for me because of who I am, And you think about that, and that's almost the approach we have sometimes when we come to God. We feel like he should just do this for me because I believe in him, because I put this faith in him. This is now what he needs to do for me, and I want us to understand is like he's not obligated to do that. He created us out of love to be in a relationship with him, to worship him there, but he's not obligated to do anything in that way. I think that's important for us to really understand, especially when we're talking about these expectations. We talk about our expectations with him. He's not obligated to do any of that. If anything, I think this will teach us humility, which we need a ton of that. As a church, we need to learn this humility in him. He's not obligated to do any of that, which will bring us in the right frame of mind of humility. And if anything, also, it'll change your perspective and your relationship with him, which will, I don't know, I guess the way I could say it, just almost have you like smacked in the face with his overwhelming grace. Because when you're in that entitlement kind of phase and you feel like God is supposed to do this for you, I think humility is definitely not out of there, but I just don't think we understand grace. When you think God's supposed to do this for you, are we really overwhelmed by his grace? Do we even really care about that? That's not even in the picture. It's like he should just do this for me. So if anything, I do believe as Christians, as the church, we should be humble. And just that's when his grace overwhelms us. It's like, I don't deserve this. He doesn't need to do this. He shouldn't do this. I just don't deserve this. And then his grace just comes in and just, that's when it overwhelms us. I think that's important, especially when we're understanding really what James is talking about here. It's important. I think I talked a little while back about understanding last week I was talking about wrestling with the question of what do you believe about Jesus? Do you believe his words? Do you believe? Because that'll change. That'll change if you even believe what I'm saying up here. If you believe in Jesus, if you trust his words, that's going to affect how you come to church. That's going to affect how you read this Bible. That's going to affect how you live. Do you really believe his words? Do you believe it? Which I think it will cause us to just naturally be humbled and then his grace is going to come over us. And you ever just have those periods, especially when you're singing? I love to just kind of come together with a group of people and just worship, and you just see sometimes how we just get overwhelmed by his grace. We get here and we just get to sing this. Maybe it's just music. Maybe we just like that, but it's like sometimes you just get overwhelmed. It's like that grace comes in. It's like, man, I don't deserve this. I don't deserve this, but he's given us this, and he wants us to come, and he's just humbled, and his grace just kind of overpowers us. So as we look at James here and what he's talking about, James told us that if we lack wisdom, ask God who gives generously. But then he tells us something that sometimes we have a problem with, and I'll put this up on the screen. It's just a really simple thing there. He just says, believe and don't doubt. That's what he said in there. He says, believe and don't doubt. Now, and this gets kind of tricky as you think about this, because I always want to point this out because I think there are some teachings that is just all about money, sometimes in the church, and it's like you got to have this, and it's almost like we're trying to say that God's only purpose in this world is to make us all rich. If we're not rich, then we're not in his favor. That's a thing that we're pushing out there sometimes, and we get it wrong when we're reading this scripture, and we see this. And then if we're not rich, we think we've done something wrong. I see people that are that way so often. I'm not trying to go off on this and like on a tangent here, but I do see that wrong. If you've noticed many times, it's the ones who are speaking this maybe are the only ones who are kind of gaining, in the financial realm, the only ones getting all this money. And it's like everyone else. This is why I think this is important. It's like, because some people will come in and they hear this teaching and they think, well, if I do this, what they're saying, if I give this, then I'm going to be rich. And then when it doesn't happen, when they come in and it's like, I'm actually worse off, and it's worse than it was before, and your teaching was telling me that God says, I'm going to be blessed, I'm going to have all these things if I do this, but it hasn't happened, therefore, he must not love me. He must not care, and people will turn away. And that's the huge danger so often of many teachings like that. Now, I'm not trying to get into that. I just want you to understand where I'm going with this, with believe and don't doubt. Believe and don't doubt. Write this down up here. There's a point. There's a condition on our answers from God. Guys, that's what he's saying there, believe and don't doubt. I just want us to really understand this, where he's coming from. Believe and don't doubt. And then he says there, as you look at this and you read what he's saying there, there's a condition on our answers from God. Let me reread what James said there in James 1, 6 through 8. He says, but when you ask, you must believe and not doubt. He's saying you must. Because the one who doubts is like a wave of the sea blown and tossed by the wind. That person should not expect to receive anything from the Lord. Such a person is double-minded and unstable in all they do. There's a condition. That's what I'm saying. I want us to understand this about prayer. There is a condition on this, and it's believing. It's believing. Don't doubt. That's what he's saying when you're talking to him. Do we really believe this? That's the condition when he's talking about this. So when you come to him, you must believe. This goes right after our shaky faith at best. I've been there, just growing up and just being a Christian. I think we all deal with that. There's just like this shaky faith. I've been there. I've seen myself in my prayers sometimes where I was sitting there praying to God, like, God, can you do this? And then in my prayer, I'm sitting there thinking, I can't do this. Like, he's not going to. I'm talking myself out of this there. And I think that's natural, maybe just for us as people there. But he's pointing this out. He's saying, I want you guys to go further in this faith. And I want you guys to believe and not doubt. That's what he's saying there. That's the condition that I really see on that. And that's what I mentioned. I mentioned a minute ago and last week about coming to grips with that, with our belief in Jesus. Do we really believe him? I think that's a huge thing that we've got to understand. We've got to come down to, because I've seen far too many people, I've seen far too many Christians that I'm not convinced that they really did believe the words of Jesus, that they were just coming to do what we're doing here because this is just what we do. It's what we've always done. It's what good means, just coming into church and doing some things, and it's just a social club, and that's becoming to like make me sick. That's not what it's about. It's more than that. And I've wrestled with that so much. Do I believe the words of Jesus? And that's what he's always going after. He's saying, okay, I'm gonna go at your faith here. Do you believe this? Because your question, I think so many of us are wondering, like when we come to church and we read things like this, it's like, what do I need to do to have this type of faith? It's not shaky, and that's what he's saying. It's really simple. Maybe difficult for us, but it's simple to understand. Believe and don't doubt. And that's what he points out to there. But I know a lot of people are saying, I've tried this, and it just doesn't seem to work for me. I prayed, maybe you prayed something similar to this, like, God, Kyle, I prayed this one time for bazillions and bazillions of dollars, if that's even a number. I prayed for all this stuff. It's like, I wanted all this money. I wanted all this, so I didn't have to work, and didn't have to worry about anything, where everybody was just kind of jealous looking at me and having all this stuff, and it's like, it didn't happen. God's not there. Maybe your prayer wasn't as extreme in that way, but sometimes it is. It's just, I want to have all this stuff, and he didn't give it to me, and I don't get it. I wanted it. I believed that I was going to have those things, but I really didn't get it. And let me offer you an answer to that. An answer to that type of a prayer is he did answer you, and many times it's no. It's like, I don't want to give you this because that's not what you need. There have been times, I've said this before, there's a lot of things that I prayed for in the past when I was growing up, and I'm really thankful that I didn't get those things, because now I see why God allowed me to maybe go through things, or he caused me to be stronger, and maybe it would have taken me down a different path. Like if I did win the Heisman, which it was pretty close there for a while, but if I did win, maybe my life would have, it was never in the picture, but maybe my life would have been something completely different going this direction, and I wouldn't have been like called to come to this church. I mean, there's just so many things. It's like he has this infinite wisdom, and we need to trust in that. So sometimes when we do pray for things, he is there. I want to give us encouragement there. It's like he's not just answering some. I think he answers everything, but sometimes it's no, and we gotta be okay with that. He's God. He's in control of everything, and we just got to trust in that. It goes back to, again, do we believe God? Do we believe his words? Do we believe what he says in here, that I'm in control? I have all complete knowledge, and you and I, we're kind of like me, as a 30-minute-old dad, thinking I know how to raise this kid and how it's going to be, and it's like, you have no idea. Like, that's where we are in our life, and yet we come to God and be like, this is what I need. Here's my list of things. Give me these things, and it's going to work out. I don't understand, God, why you're not giving me these things. I don't understand why you're not doing this. Now, sometimes it takes a while. Maybe sometimes it's like, I'm going to take you through this life, and there's something I'm going to take you through, and then he's going to answer that. I'm just telling you that. But don't just give up because you didn't just get those answers. Dive into the Word and see why he didn't maybe give that to us. So there's a stipulation sometimes in those prayers and talking to God. Do we believe and have faith? And just don't downplay those verses. Don't downplay those things and say, well, what it's actually saying is he's not really saying we need to believe and not doubt. No, that's what he's actually saying. He says, don't believe and don't doubt. Make it quick there, what? Yeah, after. Let's do that. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because I've said before, I'll get lost in my thing here, and everyone will leave. Now, but let's don't downplay these. Let's go to these. I used to go to some of these verses and just say, well, okay, this isn't really what he's saying there. But no, it's exactly what he's saying there. Believe and don't doubt. That's a tough thing, but we got to wrestle with that. As people, we're people of faith, and sometimes we want to take out this belief with no doubt out of our equation here. We're people of faith. We should be diving into that and wrestling with these all the time. Write this down. Your expectations of God are based on your relationship with him. Your expectations of God are based on your relationship with him. And I'll explain that. My relationship or experience, I guess I could say, with cops, and I have a lot of experience, don't start questioning here. My experience and relationship with cops is that, say I leave here and I go to my house, which is not too far down the road, Sam Houston, and I go there to grab something, and I come back here because I got to preach, and I'm doing like 100 miles an hour. I'm not sure I could get up to 100 in my old truck without it breaking down before I get here. But say I'm doing 100 miles an hour down here, my experience with them is that I'm going to get a big fat ticket if I do that. They're going to do something. They're going to question things, and I'm going to try to lay my Bible there in the right way that they see it, and they're probably still going to give me that ticket and be like, I don't care. You need to slow down. My experience with, I guess just with the government is like if I just stop paying my taxes, I'm probably, for an extended time, I'm probably going to get in a lot of trouble and go to prison if I do that for a long time. That's my experience. My experience with, let me try to think of something not like against the law so you guys don't think I'm shady. But my experience with people, with just somebody I just met, is going to be vastly different than somebody that I know, somebody that I'm friends with, somebody that I just met. If I just met them, I really don't have a whole lot of expectations with them. It's just other than like, I don't want them to punch me or, spit on me or something. I mean, it's going to be really low expectations. And really that, I don't even know. I don't know this person. Maybe they just punch people they meet. So really low expectations. I don't even know them. I don't know what to expect from them. It's going to come down to, do I want to be close friends with them or like a Facebook acquaintance? Really it comes down to something like that. A close friend, though, it's completely different. We've put in the time. We've known each other. We've been around each other. I have some expectations. There's something in my experience with them. It's going to make my relationship grow. And that's, in a lot of ways, what I'm thinking about here with God is that we put in this time with him. this experience with him, the longer you are following Christ, the more your relationship is going to be stronger. I mean, that's not real deep, right? I mean, I think we get that. The longer you're in a relationship with him, your relationship is just going to grow. That just happens. I mean, we need to understand that. I think about my wife and I's marriage. I think it's really good, you know, and what makes our marriage really good? She's back there. I can say this. It's because of me. You know, it's just me. Don't tell her that. If she was in here, though, I would say, it's because, you know, what does she tell me to say? Now, it's because we work in that relationship. It's because we've grown, we love each other, we're pursuing this close relationship with the other. It's that. I mean, it is. You put in there, you talk about work, you talk about pursuing a relationship, love, just all of that. And it's the same thing, amen. It's the same thing I think about with just our, yeah, go ahead and give me a step on it. No, it's fine. It was part of the message. I was trying to bring that out. And now, you guys are all testing me to see if I can stay focused, and I'm slightly there. But no, it's pursuing that relationship. It's the same thing with God. If we don't pursue it at all, if we just stay back, if you come into church and it's like, I do this all the time regularly, maybe semi-regularly or whatever, and I come in, but you don't pursue it, you're not reading his word, you're not praying to him, you're not growing anymore, that relationship is going to be stagnant. If you can even call it a relationship. I mean, that's just the truth, and we got to really understand that. So the question really kind of always arises with that is like, what I see with Christians coming in is like, so how do I get to this point of having this type of relationship with him? Remember what he was talking about in there? He was looking there and he was saying, it's like a wave of the sea tossed around. If you've been in the ocean and you've seen water like that, it's just, the water's calm, the water's fine, but anything coming on it can just cause it to go all these places. You know, storm comes in, wind comes in, and it's pushing the waves all over the place, you know. Somebody jumps in there, does a cannonball, just anything getting in there is going to cause waves and going to cause this water to move around. And that's the picture that he's given to us. He says if we have this type of shaky faith, if we don't have any foundation in him, maybe you come in here and like Kyle said one thing, you know, and I'll remember that. You know, it seemed really good. And then you have no foundation in Christ and you get out in the world. In fact, there's a parable about this, a parable of the soils that kind of goes with this. But say you hear something and it sounds good, and then we leave out of the church and we go out there, and I'm telling you, there's all these competing ideas that you're going to be hit with in our world. There's all these different ideas. There's all these temptations. All these things are going to come at us. And if we have no foundation in him, we're going to be tossed around like a wave in the sea. We're going to go to these different ideas. We're going to try this out. And it's like, well, that sounded good, but this sounds even better. This sounds good. In the moment, this is going to help. And then we're going to go over to this, and we're just kind of tossed around. And we have no faith. It's like we have ADD faith. You know, I mean, I see that with us so often in the church. And we call ourselves Christians, and we're just taking all these different directions. So this is what I say is pursue Jesus to grow this unshakable faith. Because that's what we talk about. Again, it's simple things here. I'm not throwing anything out there like you don't know these things. Like, wow, I've never heard any kind of statement like this. But pursue Jesus to get this type of unshakable faith. Like what James is talking about. Like to not be tossed around like a wave in the sea. What do? It's like we got to pursue this relationship with God. It just comes down to simple things of reading his word, pray to him, obey his word. Simple things. I could have just ended the message right there in the very beginning. You know, just those simple things. Read his word, pray to him, obey his word. That's what he's talking about. Pursue him in this relationship. That is what's going to change everything in your life. If you ever see anybody, I don't know where everybody is in here, but if you ever see anybody, it just seems like they just have it all down. Don't everybody point at me at the same time. But if you see somebody, it just seems like they have it all down in this spiritual life. I'm telling you, they didn't just like wake up. They weren't just there and just have everything together. It is following him. That is what we need to be doing, is pursuing him. It is reading his word. It's getting in there in this book and wrestling with things that are tough. Wrestling with things that maybe you're dealing with in your life. And it's like, do I need to change these things? Do I need to start living for him? It's just getting into his word. That's what it is. That's what we come here to do. We're all messed up. Let's just admit it. We're all messed up. And we come here, and as a family, we're pursuing him, and we're helping each other, pushing each other along. And we're at different maturity levels here. I think that's important for us to remember. That's good, and I'll talk about this. Last verses I'm going to read here. 1 Corinthians chapter 3. I like this here. There's other places. There's in Hebrews as well. It talks about this. I just want you to understand this about these different levels of maturity in the church, and I'll make a point here with this. 1 Corinthians 3, 1 through 2. Brothers and sisters, I could not address you as people who live by the Spirit, but as people who are still worldly, mere infants in Christ. I gave you milk. You see what he's talking about? He's talking about like feeding like infants here. Not solid food, for you weren't ready for it. Indeed, you're still not ready for it. And I'm not going to go into all the things he talks about. Hebrews talks about this as well. And really what he's pointing out, I want us to see, is that there's different maturity levels, spiritual maturity levels. There's different maturity levels in our church, all different churches. It's just that way. And I'll admit this, like, I don't want us to just be a church that's just closed off and we're these people of like super high maturity levels. Like we're all up there. I want us all to grow. Don't say I want you to like stay where we are or whatever. I don't just want it just to be us at this really high level. Like we've made it. We're up here at the mountain, you know. Spiritual, immature people are way down there. You know, we can't even see them. They're so small. Like, yeah, I'm not saying I want us to be up there. I love it that there are different maturity levels. In fact, I think it needs to be that way. I think it should be that way. That's the things I see in these verses is that there is different maturity levels. And mature Christians, you should be around immature Christians. Sometimes it's going to frustrate you. Sometimes you're going to be like, man, was I ever like this? You're going to think about that in all these ways. And sometimes it's difficult because you're trying to teach them and disciple them, and it's difficult. But I would almost say it's essential for us as a church, as spiritually mature Christians, to be around less mature believers. How are they going to know? How are they going to grow? And I think it's essential that we have different levels in the church. I love that. But the second thing I see about that is that we shouldn't stay in that kind of low state. You know what I mean? Like we should all be growing. We should be. There's different levels. Not everybody should be doing the same things, but there's different levels in that way. And I think that's important. And that's what I see there really with James and what he's talking about through this book of having this kind of unshakable faith and these expectations with God, and just my maturity level I've seen in my life of just how it's changed and how I grew with him. It's so essential for us. Prayers, we get into that relationship with him and we grow and we pursue that. We read his word. We see what it says there. And then let's go do it. We've been talking about that a lot. Let's do that, guys. Let's pursue him with everything in our lives. Let's pursue him as a church. Let's not just, what I'm asking you guys as a church, and I say it a lot, but we have to always remember this. Let's not just be a group of people, some Christians that got together and we just started just another church. I'm not even thinking of any other church. I'm just saying, like, let's just not just be another church, another group of people that just comes together. We get into this. We have a good time. We leave and we kind of go on our way. There's way more than that. Church, we have a huge job and an even greater responsibility to take this message to the world, of people around us that need to know God, that are lost, that are dying, that need hope, that are pulled around by all these different competing ideas. And we have this message, and we need to get out there to everybody. James 1:22, I don't have it up here, but he just talks about, don't just listen to the word and deceive yourselves. Do what it says. Chapter 2, he goes into this idea of kind of crushing this non-committal, no faith, I guess, lack of faith, really what it is. And he compares this idea to demons and says, the demons believe in God. And we know their state. We know what's going to happen to them. The demons believe that. And he compares us to that when we just have this idea, yeah, I just believe there's a God, but it does nothing to us. It doesn't move us to action. Let's move past that. Let's not be that. That's a huge warning. That's a scary thought, just to think that we're just going to be a church that just sits here and we say some things, we have a good time, shake some hands, do some hugs, and then we just go home on our way and we don't take this message out to the world. We have to change. That's what I'm calling for us to do. Let's get our church to be in action and go reach the world and tell everybody about Christ. That's so important. You want to know what it takes to have that type of unshakable faith when we're doing that. And it's just, I could wrap it all up, like I said, and just read his word. Let's do it. We pray to him, pursue him in that relationship. That's all it is. That's what we do as we come here. We pursue him with everything, all our passion, and then let's just go tell the world about that. You guys, I'm going to...